Ready? Should we go? Action? Yes. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I just want to have a very casual chat. Today's topic is something that has been on my mind quite a bit, in particular in the last, while, because of what's been happening around the world. And the topic I want to talk about is being prepared. And what do I mean by being prepared? I follow a lot of channels on YouTube, and these channels are prepping channels. What their content is about is what to do if, what is the acronym? SHIF, when shit hits the fan, sort of prepping. These people are prepared for some pretty serious stuff happening in the world and being able to take care of themselves and their families for long periods of time. You know, they have some serious stores, years worth of food, that sort of stuff. For most of us, we're not going to have that. We're not maybe even interested in having that, or we don't have the ability to prepare like that. And I'm not really thinking about being prepared for the apocalypse, the end of the world as we know it. Though, if you look at what's been happening around the world the last few years, you might think that we are getting pretty close to that. And with everything that's happened, you know, in the last few weeks, the last few months, the last few years, more and more, it's got me questioning myself as to how prepared am I? And what do I mean by that? Well, you know, how prepared am I should something happen that interrupts my very comfortable day-to-day world? I've already done a couple of videos on the channel, 3, where I've talked about being prepared in some different ways. I did a video on having, you know, lighting sources should your power go out. I did a video on power sources should your power go out. I did a video on, actually I guess there's more. I did a video on water filters for your home and for your van. And then just recently I did a video of how things work when the power goes out in the tiny house, because that happens, especially on Vancouver Island. The infrastructure is old, and if there are strong winds or heavy snows, the power will go out. More and more I'm thinking about, am I ready? What I'm not trying to do is get anybody to panic. I don't want to freak anybody out. Panicking never, ever solves a problem. It's never the appropriate solution. I mean, I suppose if a cougar or a bear, a grizzly, you know, comes at you, your fight or flight reflex is going to be pretty damn handy and save your life, hopefully. What I've been thinking about is, how can I calmly and rationally and logically and over time, in an affordable way, yes, Sophie, prepare myself more so that if something happens, I can be confident that I'm ready for it. I can stay comfortable and safe. And there's real power in being prepared. And I guess that's what I really want to talk about, is how can we empower ourselves as human beings, as in my case, a single female living alone and, you know, 100% responsible for taking care of herself and her kitty cat. How can we put ourselves in a position of power and confidence should, you know, emergencies happen, situations happen? And, you know, if you are like me, you have been watching what's going on in the world, in other countries, on other continents, and even in our own country. And it can be terrifying. It can be scary. It can keep you awake at night. And I'm the kind of person who easily fixates on that stuff. So I always have to monitor myself as to how much of my energy am I giving that. How much am I fixating on that? How much am I obsessing about what's going on? Because let's face it, the media, either traditional or social, is never showing you good news, at least not very much of it. And they are always looking for the most sensational, most graphic, most scary news events and ways to portray those things. We're never getting 100% of the story, no matter what. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. But I mean, common sense tells us that we're never getting 100% of the story from these media outlets, again, either traditional or social. But it's so easy to fall down that rabbit hole and become obsessed with it because there's just so much out there. And we are now connected 24/7. And while I think it's really important to be informed about what's happening, I think it's also very important not to be inundated by it. So I keep myself informed. I listen to the radio in the mornings as I'm working, and if there's anything that's happening that I want to know more about, then I will go and I will search that out and I will learn more about it. But I'm very careful because more is not better when it comes to that sort of stuff. More is just more upsetting, more terrifying, and more paralyzing. I think it's important to remember that we need to be informed. We don't need to be inundated. But we also need to be prepared. And what do I mean by being prepared? I mean, it's the basics, right? Like I've already talked about. It's having ways to have lights and cook your food and power your devices should the power go down, should the grid go down. It's ways to make sure you can have clean, safe drinking water should the systems, the infrastructures go down. Being able to remove yourself from a situation. So, you know, I always keep my vehicle, gas tank, at least half full. And well, this tank is really big and very expensive to fill. So even half full, that's a lot of money. But when I had my Echo, my little Toyota, if it got down a quarter, I would fill it up. I put gas in my tank every week, whether it needs it or not, just to top it up, because I want to be sure that should something happen, a medical emergency, something happens to Sophie, and I got to take her, yes, honey, I've got to take her to the emergency vet in the middle of the night. Something happened, when my kids were at home, if something happened to them, something happens to me, one of my neighbors. The last thing you want to be doing is getting gas on your way to the emergency room. If there's a fire, I did a video on fire safety, so I guess I've done more than just 2 or 3. I am now confident that I can at least get myself and my cat out safely if something should happen. And, more than likely I'll be able to put the fire out. But even if it's a fire I can't put out, I'm feeling pretty good about being able to get out safely and either at home and in the vehicle. I'm learning more about generating solar panel power, and I have bought myself a bigger battery bank that can be charged by solar. I have also ordered a gas generator that's powerful enough to actually run 30 amp service to the house. Why? Well, if the power goes out for just a few hours, even 12 hours, even 24 hours, I'm fine, as long as it's not, a blizzard with what I've got as far as battery banks. But if it goes out for longer than that, then I'm going to need to do more. I need to be able to plug my fridge in. I need to be able to run my furnace if it's in the middle of winter and we're having an extreme cold spell. And that I can't run my furnace on one of those battery banks. So, I realized I need that additional backup source that I can use to power the house should the grid be down for multiple days, because that happens. And it hasn't happened to me yet since I've been on the island, but I've talked to enough people who live here and who've experienced that, which is different than living in a big city. When I was in Calgary, we did have some power outages, but they never lasted very long because it's such a robust infrastructure there. However, those of you living in big cities, especially in the US, I've watched the footage of these rolling power outages, both in the heat of the summer and in the depths of winter, and people literally freezing to death inside their own homes. That's a big deal. So that's one of the reasons that I bought that generator, that gas generator, is so that I have that. And again, that's peace of mind. And I've got a lot to learn about generators, and I've been watching videos, and I will learn how to change the oil and how to maintain it and make sure that it's ready to go. And I'm looking forward to that. Cans of beans, rice, pasta sauces, easy things that don't need to be refrigerated, batteries for your flashlights, those sorts of things. Ways to stay warm when your normal everyday way of staying warm isn't working. That's really important. When I'm talking about being prepared, again, I'm not talking about prepping per se, though I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm talking about us everyday people who live like these cushy everyday lives, and go through our lives thinking that everything will always be there. The water will always be coming out of our taps, and it will be safe to drink. The electricity is always going to be coming into our homes so we can light our homes and charge our devices and watch our TVs. And the gas is always going to flow in so that we can heat our homes. That's not necessarily the case, and more the world is becoming a place where we need to take more responsibility for taking care of ourselves. Not because we're expecting the world to end, but just because if something happens, we don't find ourselves vulnerable. We don't find ourselves in an unsafe situation, potentially life-threatening situation. And we don't find ourselves scared all the time, because being prepared, that's what it gives you. It puts the fear to bed, because you now have anticipated what might happen. We can't be prepared for everything. And certainly if we did have the SHTF situation, I wouldn't be prepared, right? Like the kids and I have always joked, if there's a zombie apocalypse, I want to go in the first wave. I don't want to have to survive off the land, fighting for survival. I'm not that capable. I'm talking about the stuff that could happen. And having thought it through, having put some things in place, making sure that you're prepared for the things that could happen realistically, or at least somewhat prepared. You can now stop being so anxious. I can now, because I feel a lot of anxiety about that when I think about it and I feel like I'm not prepared. Now I can put that anxiety down as much as possible, and because I have a feeling of empowerment that I have done something to be prepared. And that's kind of what I want to give you, is that mindset. I'm hoping to give you, that's what I'm hoping you will have, is the mindset of thinking it through, doing what you can to be prepared based on your situation, and then moving on to living your life instead of staying in a place of constant anxiety because of, you know, the craziness that's happening in the world. There's so much good happening in the world, but that's not what media is showing. It's showing the craziness, and of course it's serious what's happening, but it's so much in front of us that it's easy to think that there is nothing else and that the world is about to come to an end. And I don't believe that at all, but I do think that knowledge is power, being prepared is power, and we all need to empower ourselves by thinking these things through and being prepared. And whether that's being a hardcore prepper or just the soft core, is that the right term? Average person who is proactive in being prepared for some of the things that could happen. So anyways, guys, I just wanted to talk about that because it's been on my mind a lot in the last few months, really the last few years. And the more I think about the future and wanting to be in a spot of my own where I could be more off-grid and more self-sustainable, I'm starting to learn more about those things. I can't buy that property yet, but because that's my long-term plan, what I can do today and the next little while, a few years, is research and learn and educate myself and build my skill level up. I'm trying to be more proactive in that way and educate myself, again, to lower my anxiety level, my stress level, and provide me with knowledge and empowerment. So I guess that's the theme for this video. Be prepared, because knowledge is power, and I want you empowered to handle whatever comes your way, at least as much as possible. So anyways, Sophie is licking herself, which is very unladylike, but luckily you can't really see what she's doing. So I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're staying safe. Remember, in a world where you can be anything, be prepared, be kind, because again, this world needs a lot more kindness. I love you, and I'll see you next Sunday.